All right, we are back on Morning Line. It's our final segment with Clint Kelly. Always good to have him on. The number up on the screen, 737-7587. It's interesting, you mentioned that vaccine compensation fund. I remember you. And some people, I think you and I both would agree that vaccines save lives. There are folks out there that don't believe in vaccines, and to each their own, I suppose, if you choose not to have one. Certain instances, if you have children going to public schools, you have to get them for them. But they oftentimes will point to, well, if vaccines are so safe, why is there a vaccine compensation fund? And how would you answer that, Clint? I'm just curious.
Because the numbers are minuscule, tiny. I mean, we're talking 1 in 100,000 or 1 in 200,000.
Where someone has a bad result from a vaccine that requires some compensation.
It's so rare statistically. I mean, your chances of winning the Tennessee lottery are about as good as you getting a complication from a vaccine. I'm not one of those, well, it's anybody's choice or whatever. I'm a firm believer we ought to be militaristic about kids getting vaccinations, because the anti-vax crowd, why do you think we're having measles?
I know, that's
we're
the thing.
Discussing measles in 2019 because there are idiots out there, pardon me, who simply don't do the research and will not vaccinate their children, who are scared, who bought into these conspiracy theories instead of hard science. I mean, it's really sad that it's come to this, and so I hope people will vaccinate their kids. I mean, there's a reason for vaccinations.
Absolutely no question, and you're right, and you see it day in and day out. You work with doctors in hospitals, so I'm glad you said that. I couldn't agree with you more. All right, just moving on in our final segment here, just wanted to hit on a couple other things that happening right now in terms of it's amazing to me, some of these jury awards and verdicts in these opioid cases. Holy cow, the amount of money, and it stuns me, Clint, that some of these companies and families involved, while they may be shutting down now, some of them, the money that they still have after they're paying out not millions but billions of dollars. And it just tells me the opioid industry, just, my God, it was a cash cow.
Well, it was, and it's the pharmaceutical industry.
Is it still?
Big Pharma is truly Big Pharma. I mean, they may be the most powerful lobby in America behind maybe oil. But yes, they did make a ton of money. I misread the whole opioid litigation. I did not think this was going to get off the ground, because I thought the patient's liability for overdosing would overcome any claim of negligence or even recklessness. I was wrong about that. And also what I failed to anticipate was just how greedy the manufacturers were in selling the drug in the way that they sold it, knowing people were being addicted, knowing people were dying, knowing that there was an epidemic, and doing nothing but just throwing more gas on the fire to generate profits. I didn't anticipate that. I thought that pharmaceutical companies ran by a higher standard of care, higher ethical care, and I was dead wrong about that.
With this, do you think it'll change? I mean, opioids are not going to go away, and the truth is, opioids, when used properly, do help people in excruciating pain. And so I'm not saying opioids should just disappear. I know there's people out there taking them, legitimately. Do you think it's going to change, though?
I don't know, Nick, but I'll tell you what this is. It's accountability time. That's what it is. Whether the money helps, whether it actually goes to make a positive change in people's lives, I think there'll be some. But right now, this is accountability time. This is retribution time. This is time for people to belly up to the bar and pay the tab. A tab that's long overdue. And most of us, I think, have seen this, how it's developing, and I think the country's come to a consensus that pharma they're not the only party at fault here, but they are a big part of the fault in how they marketed this drug and continue to feed this epidemic when they knew years ago
that's really the key, that they had to know, and they misrepresented even to maybe others that it was as addicting as it was. And that's what it is. I mean, you and I both talked about this. I mean, we've had procedures done where sometimes I've been given an opioid for pain after the fact. I'll take one. I'll have 3 or 4, 5, 6 left. They prescribe, they prescribed 30 to me. What do I need 30 of these for? I took one, and I properly disposed of the rest.
What troubles me, Nick, is in this entire chain of accountability, I sense that some of the doctors are going to get out of this, are not going to be held accountable. The doctors who ran the pill mills, some of them had little small pill mills. They were pain management specialists, as they call themselves, or some family doctors or internal medicine doctors who ran these pill mills. I'm afraid a good number of them are going to be able to avoid accountability because Big Pharma's got the money, and the doctors just have found a way to kind of slip through the net.
I think you're right. Well, you're right. Let's go to Joe, who had a follow-up question. We heard from him earlier in the show. Hi, Joe. Go ahead. What you got?
Just a quick question, though. What is the cap in Tennessee on malpractice? And a comment. Last year I got a flu shot and a pneumonia shot, and I made the mistake of just getting it in the same arm. And I'll tell you, that didn't work out very well. My arm swelled up and got red for about almost 2 weeks. So don't do that.
Oh, that's a good point there. I didn't think about that.
What, is it because of the nature of those 2 shots? I mean, I've had 2 shots in one arm before, haven't you?
Yeah, but he's right. I don't know about the pneumonia shot. But I'm thinking about I had a tetanus shot one time. Oh my gosh, Nick, that about knocked me out. I mean, it hurt my arm for over a week. And he's right. Have them in different arms. But anyway, getting back to his point, the cap is $750,000 on what we call non-economic damages, pain and suffering, disfigurement, say you lost your leg, loss of enjoyment of life, mental pain and suffering, people who have brain damage, that type of thing. It's a $750,000 cap. There's a $1 million cap. It goes up another $250,000 if you're paralyzed, or if you lose one arm and one leg, or both legs or both arms. In other words, you have to be a double amputee to qualify for the $1 million cap.
You've won cases at the caps, have you not?
Oh, yeah.
And was it your belief if there wasn't a cap, your client would have received, as they probably, you believe, should have more money?
For sure. I've had to settle cases for half of what I think the true value of the case was because the cap came in. That blood clot case I had in Memphis was a case that was probably worth around $10 million.
Wow. Now, how were you able to get $5 million with a cap?
Because the guy had lost earnings up around $2 to $3 million.
So there's pain and suffering punitive, and then if you can prove how much lost wages, that's on top of it.
Yeah, he had lost wages close to $3 million. He was a general manager of a major hotel in Memphis. He was only 36.
And they didn't put the pressure?
And he had 4 kids.
They didn't do the pressure linens on his leg? And what happened to him?
He got a blood clot, traveled from his leg all the way up into his lungs and killed him.
Oh, he died?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. So the family got $5 million.
Right.
But he died.
Yeah. That's why there was a $5 million resolution of the case. But I'm telling you, I think it was worth 10 because this guy was the perfect family man. He left mama with 4 kids, all of them minors, Nick. Every one of them under the age of 16. Left mama have to care for all these kids. And by the time that she had, she never worked before in her life. He went with them to ball games, to fishing, was the prime disciplinarian.
He was in his 30s?
He's gone.
Oh, man.
And I'm telling you, what that does to children who grow up without a father, without their biological father, particularly when they were close, that loss is hard to put a dollar figure on.
Yeah.
At weddings.
And this was another one of those on the pressure. Yeah. The pressure lining, meaning that standard of care, they just didn't do it. He easily could be alive today had they applied pressure wrappings to his legs.
Pressure wrapping and given him, there's a drug called heparin that thins out the blood to keep you from clotting. Very simple thing to do. They just didn't do it. And they should have done it for him probably more than anybody else because he was immobilized for 4 days. He was high risk. And that's why I say these blood clot cases are really important and they can be dangerous. But yeah, because of the caps, I could not recover more than $5 million.
Do the hospitals and otherwise ever settle for a little bit more? Just say, hey, look, we're going to give you more because we know how bad this was?
I've heard that. It's never happened to me.
Okay, I was going to say that just doesn't happen.
Right.
I've seen that happen sometimes with municipalities, as we've talked about in the port, where something bad happens to a visitor to a city and there's a cap on that.
Well, that happened here in Nashville when they did when that NES,
which one I'm talking about.
Yeah, that guy that burned up at the NASCAR.
Well, it was horrible, and they did the right thing, but they went beyond.
Hope springs eternal. Our Tennessee Supreme Court right now is reviewing whether the caps on damages violate our constitutional right to a trial by jury. The theory is if the people of Tennessee in 1796, when we created this state, we reserved to ourselves the right to decide our own disputes by jury. And so if we reserve that right to decide our disputes by jury, then by definition we reserve to ourselves the right to decide what damages are.
Right. That seems to make sense.
That's the argument, that the government can't tell us what we can recover.
So even if lawmakers don't make a move on this tort reform,
the Supreme Court's going to.
The court could overturn it, and if they do, and this state Supreme Court.
That's correct, state Supreme Court.
Because that's the state law. Yeah.
Then the legislature would have to decide, well, are we going to try to amend the Constitution to put caps on? I'll take that battle. That's a battle.
All right, amending the Constitution is tough. It is. And I think more and more people are listening to what you're kind of saying and recognizing, what if I'm in that position? Do I want a cap on that?
I just think, right now I think people understand we as jurors are in better position to decide damages than the government. Just like we as jurors are better positioned to decide whether someone should live or die from a capital crime than just a judge.
Clint, thank you.
Good seeing you.
It's good seeing you, my friend. We'll see you again in a month. I'll be back with a programming note right after this. Thank you.